Stephanie Brandon. Today is Thursday, 21st December 2017. This is the SKN News Now Evening Edition. In the headlines tonight, nationally, police are investigating a shooting in Bastille and a gun discovered on a passenger bus. Internationally, Peru's president is facing corruption charges linked to the Brazil scandal. And in sport, Wimbledon champion Andy Murray is delaying his departure to Australia for the start of the new tennis season. We've got the details of these stories, the weather, Carib update, all ahead in tonight's edition of SKN News Now. Just before 9:30 last night, the peace of Upper Shore Avenue residents was shattered as a hail of gunshots rang out in the community. While police are yet to confirm this latest shooting incident, dozens of officers were seen in the area collecting what appeared to be spent bullet shells. For some time following the shooting, police secured Upper Shore Avenue between Keon Street and Central Street. According to persons who witnessed the shooting, a male appeared to be the target of masked attackers. The gunmen are said to have been traveling in a black vehicle. The man, whose identity is known but not yet confirmed by police, was fortunate to have cheated death, escaping the onslaught with a gunshot wound to his lower body. He's currently at the Joseph N. France General Hospital receiving treatment and said to be in stable condition. Meanwhile, rumors that a firearm was found on a commuter bus on Wednesday have been confirmed by authorities. The Westline passenger bus was stopped and searched on Wednesday morning at about 10 o'clock. During the search, one .40 caliber Kel-Tec pistol was found in the possession of passenger Clive Francis of Newton Ground. He was taken into police custody and is assisting with investigations. This is the 45th firearm seizure of 2017. Commenting on this latest weapon discovery, Assistant Commissioner of Police Terence James gave credit to the men and women of the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force for their vigilance. James also indicated that the Christmas and Carnival seasons are approaching their climax, and the police are remaining committed to ensuring that the country stays safe. Media personnel gathered at the Ocean Terrace Inn this morning waiting to be wowed by the announcement of the first so-called wave of artists who will appear on the 2018 St. Kitts Music Festival. Following promises of major changes designed to primarily enhance the patron experience, the St. Kitts Music Festival Committee, now chaired by Damian Hobson, announced the first 3 artists who will be featured next year. They are American artists Patti LaBelle and Lauryn Hill, and Jamaican dancehall artist Spice. The early announcement is in keeping with the committee's commitment to make the full lineup public by February 2018. The dates of the festival have also been pushed back to late June, as one of the major issues the committee bemoaned was the festival's clash with the US-based BET Awards. This overlap in dates, according to the committee, limited the artists available to be booked, as many top entertainers were often nominated or scheduled to perform at the awards. While the artists announced this morning are top entertainers, and in the case of Patti LaBelle, a musical legend, it remains to be seen whether the date shift will result in artists with more current records or hits being booked. The public is, however, being asked to make suggestions via the music festival website, which the committee promises will be considered despite their financial constraints. Meanwhile, Minister of Tourism, Honorable Lindsay Grant, this morning lamented the ever-increasing costs of hosting the festival. He said the reality is that it is difficult to strike a balance between an artist lineup that will satisfy the majority and the cost that comes at. As a result, Mr. Grant said a real focus of the committee has to be increasing attendance numbers, and it is possible that ticket prices may also have to increase.
Resources are always limited, and the committee has assured me that this year we're going to work with the little that we have and come in on budget. I've asked them to come in on budget because we want to make sure that everything goes smoothly. What I would say to you is that the government subvention is in the region of $2 million. That's what we get from the government to produce the Silver's Music Festival. When we look at ticket sales and sponsorships, we're looking in the region of another just over $1 million, I think it is. So essentially, we have $3 million thereabout to run the music festival. We've run the numbers over the years, and it takes us about $3.6 million really to run the music festival. So this year we are hoping that we look at that $3.6 million and work within that. The chairman of the selection committee understands that. Our costing for our artists alone run us in the region of $600,000 just for artists. And so you understand the kind of cost we're doing. At the same time, we are mindful that we need to keep the cost of the tickets at a level of affordability for the number of patrons who want to come to the door. But it's a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, patrons will want us to increase the value of the tickets, and then on the other hand, they want a Beyonce and a Rihanna. It can't work. But we try to meet it halfway. But what I would say is that, honestly, we have to increase the tickets. We have to. I'm not saying it's going to be this year, but the real fact is that we cannot continue to operate at the cost we are operating at and give you a fantastic music festival.
The minister also commented on the local entertainers and said that they will continue to be an integral part of the music festival activities.
My remit has always been that we need to give local acts the exposure to this type of entertainment and this type of stage. And so as much as possible, we make sure that we get as many local acts as we can, given the time frame that we want to work with, the 1 o'clock cut-off period. So we definitely will work with the local acts. I think this year, 2017 Music Festival was the most local acts we've ever had. So it shows the commitment on our part to make sure that we expose our local acts to the stage.
While a new date for the traffic lights to go into operation has not yet been announced, Minister of Public Infrastructure, Urban Development and Transport, Honorable Ian Patches-Liebert, says they will go on sometime early next month. Earlier this week, a traffic department official said that several logistical issues had arisen, including the lack of regulations governing the use of the traffic lights. In addition to this, Minister Liebert indicated that the late delivery of the main control panel for the lights was also a major cause for the delay. The shipment of the control panel arose because of issues with United States Homeland Security and the airline carrier. With these issues on the table, a decision was taken to delay commissioning the traffic lights. The initial rollout date, which had been announced by Minister Liebert some weeks ago, was December 18th. The first phase of the traffic light rollout, which comes at a cost to taxpayers of $600,000, has been met with mixed reviews, with the majority of persons remarking at the lack of public education regarding their use and choice of location, particularly for the lights at the junction of Lower Keon Street, Pond Road and Wellington Road, where a roundabout exists. And finally, this evening, it has officially been confirmed that Monday's election in Nevis had no reported incidents. This also carried over into the post-election activities, including the swearing-in of new Premier Mark Brantley. According to police and election officials, the polls opened on time at 7 a.m. and closed at 6. The ballots were then transported to the various counting locations, with the final results announced after 2 a.m. And although the voter turnout was low, thousands of people who did cast their votes are all reported to have complied with electoral rules and regulations. Meanwhile, there is still silence from the top ranks of the Nevis Reformation Party, as now more than 72 hours have passed, with no statement from the party following their 4-1 loss to the CCM. So far, the only member of the NRP to have made a comment is Deputy Leader Hensley Daniel, who has said the party intends to regroup, examine its approach as its message This election did not resonate with the electorate and even possibly change its leadership ahead of the next Nevis Assembly elections. On Tuesday, NRP leader Joseph Parry was said to have informed the executive that he would be making a public statement. However, he has made no public statement to date on this matter or to the people of Nevis and his party supporters. This silence has added further fuel to the rumor that Mr. Parry has or intends to resign as leader of the NRP. Stay with us, still to come this evening, sport, the weather, and today's top international developments. Peru's President Pablo Kuczynski faces the toughest moment yet in his short presidency. After just 17 months in office, today he answered to allegations of graft in dealings with the Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht. The so-called car wash corruption scandal in Brazil has affected many countries in the Americas. But now the case has turned into a political witch hunt in Peru. Mariana Sanchez has the details.
Only 17 months in office, but Peru's president Pedro Pablo Kuczynski could be about to be removed from office. On Thursday, he will defend himself in Congress against allegations of graft that he dealt with Brazilian construction giant Odebrecht while he held high government posts. But in a televised message on Wednesday, Kuczynski said he has always been transparent and hasn't done anything improper.
I recognize I made mistakes. I want to ask for your forgiveness, with my mind clear and pain in my heart for not being careful with my information about my activities. I am deeply sorry, but this has never been a tool for dishonesty and criminal activities.
Kuczynski doesn't deny his company received payments. Odebrecht says it paid nearly $4 million to Kuczynski's businesses, though he says they were managed by associates.
We base the impeachment on the fact that when he was finance minister, his company received money from the corrupt Odebrecht company, and for lying to the country about it.
Experts say legislators are imposing a fast-track impeachment. The Popular Force Party, led by Keiko Fujimori, who lost the presidential election by a tiny margin, has already forced out 5 government ministers, and now critics say it is after the president.
The Congress has given him an ultimatum to resign or be removed. This violates his constitutional right to defend himself, the presumption of innocence and due process. It is a coup in the making.
Kuczynski has asked the judiciary for a constitutional appeal to stop the impeachment and for the Organization of American States to send observers to watch how proceedings are conducted. Hours before the impeachment began, thousands of Peruvians marched in the center of Lima, saying they're disenchanted with the political class.
Well, people here are not only furious at Kuczynski, but also at the political majority. They say they not only want to control Congress, but the country.
Opinion polls say nearly all politicians in office have lost the people's support.
We have to fight for a new constitution to restructure our country. All these corrupt officials need to go.
President Kuczynski says he will defend his mandate, but even if he's able to hold on to the presidency, it will be very difficult to gain the trust of most Peruvians.
Soldiers in Cameroon have shot dead at least 8 people and wounded others after English-speaking communities began protesting for independence. Witnesses say gunshots have been heard throughout the night and tear gas is still being deployed on the streets by the military. Charlotte Bellis has more.
As you can hear, gunshots, serious gunshots and tear gas.
Cameroon's Unification Day was anything but unified. The country is split down linguistic lines, French and English English speakers seized the anniversary to demand independence.
But they were met by the forces of law and order, the military, so to say, who were very brutal. They were very heavy-handed.
The government banned gatherings of more than 4 people, shut shops and disrupted social media. But that didn't stop the English-speaking movement. They used Facebook Live, Twitter and WhatsApp to spread the news.
I'm embarrassed, shocked, totally devastated at the level of carnage that Yaoundé is prepared to go to keep our people subdued and oppressed.
Independence activists say 5 of the dead were prisoners escaping a jail that caught fire. Cameroon's President Paul Biya responded with a statement on Facebook saying, "I strongly condemn all acts of violence, regardless of their sources and their perpetrators. Let me make this very clear. It is not forbidden to voice any concerns in the Republic. However, nothing great can be achieved by using verbal excesses, street violence and defying authority." Gunshots were heard throughout the night. Heavily armed military personnel patrolled English-speaking areas on Monday and shot tear gas at residents on the street.
I ran into the military. They fired a tear gas canister at me, so I had to scamper for safety. This is just to show you how tense and how brutal the situation is.
The roots of this crisis began after the First World War, when Cameroon was divided between the French and the British. At its independence in 1961, English speakers from British areas joined French Cameroon instead of neighbouring Nigeria. They complain the French have always stifled their language and culture. French speakers disagree and supported a unified Cameroon on Sunday, and some English speakers agree with them.
The separatists want the crisis to turn violent enough so that you can eventually end up with a situation where international bodies get involved and try to force the government of Cameroon to change the constitution to allow for a vote.
Power has been cut in southern areas of Cameroon, and when phones die, so will the ability to find out more about what is going on.
Still to come this evening, sport, the weather and Carib update. In sport this evening, Andy Murray has delayed his departure to Australia but still hopes to begin his season in Brisbane in January. The 3-time Grand Slam champion has not played a competitive match since Wimbledon because of a hip condition. The Scot is due to play in the Brisbane International, which starts on New Year's Day, before the Australian Open in Melbourne from the 15th through 19th of January. Murray, who's 30 years old, had originally planned to go to Australia before December 25th. The double Wimbledon champion, who suffered a hip problem after the French Open in May, remains on the entry list for Brisbane. Murray, who has slipped to 16th in the world rankings, was beaten by America's Sam Querrey in the Wimbledon quarterfinals before traveling to New York in late August for the US Open, but pulled out 2 days before the tournament began, having failed to recover sufficiently. His last public appearance was at a charity match against Roger Federer in Glasgow in early November, where he took a set from this year's Australian Open and Wimbledon champion. And now for a look at this evening's weather first. Tonight across St. Kitts and Nevis, conditions will be partly cloudy with a slight chance of isolated showers. Seas are slight to moderate with waves of 1.2 to 1.8 meters or 4 to 6 feet. Small craft operators and sea bathers should exercise caution. Winds are east-northeasterly to easterly at 9 to 17 miles per hour. The sea level pressure is above normal at 1015.7 millibars or 29.99 inches. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:36 a.m. Thank you for tuning in to this evening's news presentation. Before we leave, however, a recap of today's top stories. Nationally, police are investigating a shooting in Lastaire and a gun discovered on a passenger bus. Internationally, Peru's president faces corruption charges linked to the Odebrecht Brazil scandal. And in sport, Wimbledon champion Andy Murray is delaying his departure to Australia for the start of the season. I've been your presenter this evening, Ebony Brandon. Stay tuned. Carib Update comes up next, followed by DJ Yarden.